What's good, everyone, and welcome back to another reaction video. Today we are reacting to Game Theory, FNAF, The Origins of Evil. I'm glad that you can't see what I'm doing with my hands, because I am ashamed of what I did with my hands. I literally did the thing where you say, never mind, I did just forget what I just said. Anyway, welcome back to another reaction video. Today we are reacting to Game Theory FNAF, The Origins of Evil. So yeah, the link to this video will be down in the description below, so be sure to give some love and support to Game Theory for the video they made and put some work into that I'm reacting to. Hit the like button if you enjoyed this video. Hit the subscribe button to support the channel, support the content provided, and all the other good stuff provided. It's just a simple click. And that's it. That's all you need to do. Hit the notification button, be notified immediately when a new video comes out. And if you have any other video recommendations, leave it down in the comment section below. I'll react to it as soon as possible. With all that said, hope you'll enjoy. And let's see how this goes, right?
I've done it. I've solved FNAF, and the clue that brings it all together is this.
Don't you hate getting killed by obscure secondary characters?
You solve FNAF with the mediocre melodies. Well, this is if this actually does do this, I will be extremely annoyed.
Hello, Internet. Welcome to Game Theory, where today I'm just gonna get straight to the point. This episode was supposed to be our final timeline, but you know what? It's not quite there yet. I think we're gonna have it ready for next week. There's just a few wrinkles that we need to iron out about Elizabeth's death specifically, but otherwise, I feel really good about everything we've pieced together so far.
So this is like, so the timeline is like almost complete. It's just Elizabeth's part. I really hope that Vanessa isn't Elizabeth Afton. I know, like, some of you are thinking it makes sense, but it also doesn't make sense. Because of the very foundation that that theory brings. It's literally a giant mess. It's so much of a mess that I honestly can't deal with it. Because it brings so much more questions than it should. I mean, I talked to this about, I went over some of this stuff over with Zell Z. Great person, actually. We had he brought up some interesting points and all that, and brought up some stuff that I haven't really thought of, but and all this and all that, it was an interesting thing to read about in the comment sections, because this is a confusing as hell thing. Besides his own, actually, their own brought up points, and my own, it's a confusing thing to say that Elizabeth Afton has the same thing Charlie does have going in the books, because that's going to be confusing as heck. And very outrageous, to be honest. I mean, besides the main stuff, it's mainly the one thing that just bugs the literal heck out of me. if Elizabeth Hampton has robot copies, why are they active now? How are they active now and all that? Because with this thought process, the Elizabeth Hampton that's supposed to be like the child in the DLC is supposed to be like around the age she died, if not a little less, but that still is like crazy because you gotta go to around toddler age. And we don't know the exact age of Elizabeth Hampton. She could be literally 8 or even 9 or 5 for all we know. And we don't know that. And then comes the thing with Vanny/Vanessa, because you can't make 2 generations of the same model. And if anyone even says to bring up Scrap Baby, then literally that's out of the question because Circus Baby has the original stuff to do illusion disc technology. Honestly, it's very frustrating when you think about it. Furthermore, you gotta consider the fact that Vanessa and Vanny would have to be around the same age. And if there was like a CEO Elizabeth, then that just adds the thing to the point that that Elizabeth has to be even older than Vanessa and Vanny. And that's like really, really confusing because yeah, the person has to be like what? An adult working at Pizzaplex? A night shift at a place like the pizzeria that's more viable to say around a team, but you have to probably be an adult considering everything else because of the lawsuits that you could even take. So, considering that Fazbear is trying to do all this weird stuff with William Afton and all that, and considering the fact that Vanessa and Vanny, if we even do consider them 2 separate people, they look too much alike. So you really have to consider the point of change to where someone would look different. Because there's no way that, like, an adult version of Vanessa would like have like someone that would look this like her, but extremely different. Like she's older. Because if you consider it like that, you're gonna have to go like that Fanny would have to be well same age as an adult body, and considering that 21's a prime age, and you're at your prime for some time, and then you're going through some age stuff, probably like late 30s to early 40s. Yeah, I don't see it because you gotta actually consider age and the one point of changing one model for another, so probably 40. And considering that Vanessa didn't look too different from the one on top of the building, that leaves even more questions than answers. Because, especially when you gotta consider why are they active now? Why after everything that happened, the pizza Bria burned down and all that, and how is Elizabeth active? Because that makes no sense in my opinion. Because literally, this is like the most confusing thing ever. Plus, we also have to consider the fact that if everything is as true as it says, then other theories we're gonna have to consider because Glamrock Freddy would technically be Michael. Gregory would be technically Evan, who is technically called the Drying Child because people still don't know about the name thing. I'm just calling him Evan now because everyone is calling him Evan now, so dealing with that. But yeah, this is like literally the most confusing thing ever. Plus, there could be the case that I don't know. I just came up with this theory right on the top of my head that the Vanessa on the floor is technically, well, actually, the case is technically something point that Zal brought up, but technically, illusion dance technology could have actually helped with that ending, and bam, the one on the roof was technically Vanessa as a way to save herself, and she just saw a robot that's technically using illusion dance technology, and it fell to the ground. So honestly, anything could go on with that ending. It's literally the most confusing and frustrating theory that I am thinking of right now. Because anything I think of involving this literally has some things that can be said and done to make it seem like it can have this one big flaw. I'm sorry I'm talking about this like right now at the very beginning of the video, but this is just a big thing to even talk about because that theory literally messed me up because we got a thing saying that Golden Freddy might have not been real, and considering the fact that he just appears and disappears despite having no endoskeleton, just makes it so weird and all that. That I'm now having to consider and try to figure out what's real, what's not real. Is this true? Is this false? And all that. Honestly, it's a big pain, but it's something that's very, very fascinating. Anyway, let's continue because this is getting nowhere. Well, not nowhere, but this is just going to get to more complicated stuff, and then there's going to be more arguments here and there. But literally, this is a big thing to consider.
The timeline that's likely going to be controversial, which is also a bad thing because it's the beginning of the timeline. Nothing like starting off on the wrong foot, you know? So in order to head that one off at the pass, let's just start talking about it now, shall we? Last episode, I brought up how the team and I have been tackling this whole timeline project. Basically, that we've broken down everything into 3 key sections: the foundation of Freddy's, the Afton era, and post-Purple Guy. In that episode, we dug hard into the last chunk, trying to figure out the recent history with things like FNAF VR and Security Breach. But even trickier is the first chunk, the foundation of Freddy's. You see, at this point, we all have a general basic knowledge of the games, right? Kids die, animatronics get possessed, all that kind of stuff. But here, that foundational stuff right at the beginning.
Okay, yeah, that's a thing to actually consider, because the very beginning, no one technically knows. I mean, it's as he's put it, we know the basic foundation of the thing. Kids die, they possess robots, the killer was technically an employee who's named Purple Guy. Purple Guy killed them, and he's the owner of the foundation alongside another guy named Henry Emily, and so on and so forth. And that's a headache.
That's the murkiest, because honestly, there's not a lot that's immediately clear that we can go off of. Sure, there's a couple of lines from Phone Guy, maybe some novels, but otherwise, it seems to be about it. How did William Afton and Henry Emily start working together? Were they rivals? Why did Afton start killing in the first place? Was Fredbear's Family Diner truly the first location? These are questions that seem important for us to answer, and honestly, if you're looking at where the timeline of Five Nights at Freddy's really begins, it's with those sorts of questions. The only problem is that the answers just might not exist anywhere in the canon yet. Or so I initially thought, which brings us to...
Yeah. That is probably the biggest question of all. Well, questions, if I think about it carefully. But yeah, that's essentially the problem.
Today's episode. I suspect that there may be a way to answer some, if not all, of those questions using a mix of evidence from games, the books, and real-life lore. In the process, I think it'll help us get a better understanding of William Afton's motives, while also outlining a rough sequence of events that'll ultimately help place locations and other things when I tackle the full timeline of the series next week. And all of it hinges on one thing: a set of obscure secondary characters named the Mediocre Melodies, or
Well, they let this stuff about Cassidy, so if they can actually do something again, I will be impressed.
the Elephant, Ned Bear, Pig Patch, Happy Frog, and of course, Mr. Hippo.
Sometimes a story.
No!
You try to read into every little thing and find meaning in every
Oh, no. Okay, thank you.
Been leveled at me more times than I can count, but I think in this case, we actually didn't read into you enough. You see, when the Mediocres were first introduced in Pizzeria Simulator, we, as the community, largely dismissed them. And why wouldn't we? This is a game where you're pulling animatronics out of a dumpster. Trash and the gang are literally made of garbage. Why would we think that some random barnyard-themed characters would be worth our attention when there was already so much established lore inside of the thing? We beat the game, we solved the lore, we moved on. Then Ultimate Custom Night released, and there they were again. It was strange to see him fill so many slots, but I don't know, there was also Trash in the Gang, and Music Man! Other random pulls from the character cuts, so maybe it was just Scott trying to fill out the roster. But then something unexpected happened. Well, they were mostly...
Maybe it wasn't completely random. Maybe they all had a purpose. Now that we're tackling this, maybe there is a purpose to follow them. I just don't know why. Or what it is.
The most important character and mystery from the game. The one you shouldn't have killed, Cassidy.
We've only just begun. I will never let you leave. I will never let you rest.
It was a huge revelation, and the lines that they spoke ultimately helped us to determine that Custom Night was William Afton's endless torment at the hands of the spirits inside the Golden Freddy suit. But again, none of us ever stopped to consider why them? Why these characters? Why were they the ones that Cassidy was choosing to speak through? Why are they here? Well, after doing a lot of research for the grand overall timeline, now I think I know. The Mediocre Melodies were Henry's creation from a time before he and William started working together. When the two men merged their ideas together to form one company, the Mediocres became temporary characters at Fredbear's Family Diner before eventually being retired and largely forgotten. Oh, yeah! That is a lot of big swings that I made.
Hold on. You're saying that the Mediocre Melodies weren't just a group that Henry made for the thing. For FNAF 6. They were literally, and to see if I'm right about this, they were literally original characters that were made for temporary use. I would like to call bull, but I'll see where this goes.
Making with some massive assumptions, so let's just rewind and take it one step at a time, shall we? First, how do we know that the mediocre melodies belong to Henry? Well, let's just look at their design. It's very simple. They're similar to the Endo 01 designs from the FNAF 1 animatronics, but even more rudimentary, with less flexible joints and less complex wiring. But the important point here is that for each one, the upper jaw and the lower jaw are entirely separate, operating using a very basic hinge towards the back of the head, or two metal bars that slide up and down along the side. And you see, that right there is what tells us they belong to Henry. Well, there are plenty of animatronics that fall into a nebulous zone of who designed them. There are a few pieces of tech that we can definitely trace back to their original creator. The Funtime animatronics, for instance, definitely came from Afton. Not only were they designed with the intent of luring and capturing children, something that just doesn't jive with Henry, but the blueprints outright have Afton Robotics written in the corner. Not much you can do to deny that one. Sound illusion discs? Another Afton creation, considering the backs of them are stamped with his company name as we see in the graphic novels. But the one
Huh. Yeah, that makes sense.
I'm most interested in today is Lefty, the animatronic designed by Henry used to capture his daughter the puppet during FNAF 6. That was clearly not an Afton project. This was purely Henry's doing in secret. So, knowing that
That was kind of obvious. Not to say anything bad, but it was an obvious thing.
did you happen to notice the two straight metal rods in the schematics with the jaw fully detached from the top of the head? It's an exact match for the design of Happy Frog. It's a Henry signature. But why does that matter? Well, the designs of the mediocres also perfectly match up to the first generation of Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, and Chica. We know that the Wizards were the earliest form of our Core 4 animatronics. These were the ones that had children stuffed inside of them and got possessed. They outright tell us this fact in Ultimate Custom Night.
I was the first. I have seen everything.
But have you ever stopped to look at how the Wizards were constructed? They use the exact same techniques as the mediocre melodies. They have a full separation between the tops of their head and their jaws. Withered Freddy and Foxy both have the hinge opening in the back like we see with Pig Patch, and Withered Chica follows the Happy Frog and Lefty model with bars in the jaw to aid in opening and closing the mouth. Think this is just a coincidence? Look at Chica in other games. Chica in FNAF 1, a fundamentally different design. Funtime Chica, definitely not. Toy Chica, nope. The only other time we see this sort of fully separated head design for animatronics is with the FNAF 6 Rockstar animatronics. Ones that, again, we know were built by Henry as part of his plan to lure everyone back to his
So those ones were with that kind of technique implemented. That means any animatronic like that is Henry's. Alright. But considering that the characters from FNAF 1 got remodeled, what does that mean? Does that mean, like, after a certain time, Henry and William combined both their brains just to remake them? Or is that just a Henry thing?
pizzeria trap. In short, the animatronic design seems to be giving us a timeline of events. The mediocres and Wizards were built by Henry early in the timeline of the games. Eventually, Afton starts to influence the designs more and more until Henry comes back to design the robots that were used for his pizzeria trap. But again, I ask, why does any of this matter? Isn't this just a minor detail? Me looking for connections where they don't really matter? No. Knowing that the Wizards and the mediocres share a design seems like it might help explain another part of the lore, Happiest Day. In FNAF 3's Happiest Day minigame, we walk past children wearing masks that match the coloring and rough shape of the mediocres.
Oh! So they did exist. So that means... Okay. So that means Happiest Day was around the time the mediocres disappeared. And the FNAF 2 withered ones, which were still operational, like Foxy had both his arms, his top head, and looked brand new along with the others, and yeah. Okay, I see that, okay. But what about Spring Bonnie and Fredbear? Or Spring Freddy? I don't know. Where did they fit?
Green frog, purple hippo, orange elephant, blue. Okay, not all of them match. But here's the thing, I'm not the one pointing that detail out. This is actually coming from Scott Cawthon himself. In the Five Nights at Freddy's Ultimate Guide, the character description for each mediocre melody calls this out as something worth noting. Quote, it's unconfirmed, but a child in the FNAF 3 Happiest Day minigame appears to be wearing a Happy Frog mask, Orville mask, Mr. Hippo mask. Every single entry mentions this specific detail. Seems like an odd fan theory to call so much attention to. And remember, Happiest Day is an exact recreation of the FNAF 4 pizzeria. We enter at the stage where Crying Child's bitten, we pass 3 tables, there's a bit of a gap, and then the final birthday table for the cake that's gonna set Crying Child's soul free. It seems to suggest that at some point the mediocre melodies existed in one version of the restaurant right alongside Freddy, Foxy, Bonnie, and Chica. But how could all that be? Well, it's easier than you might think. In the story The Puppet Carver, we read about the Pizza
Oh, wow.
a restaurant that seems to predate or be a competitor to Freddy's. And in it, we see that the franchise uses very rudimentary animatronics that break down a lot. There's a pig with a banjo, an off-brand bear named Baron Von Bear, and an unknown bird animatronic. It's the mediocre melodies, guys. Pig Patch, Ned Bear, and hold on, there's no bird in the mediocre melodies. Unless, of course, we're talking about Chica. What this story seems to heavily suggest is that Chica started at a different pizza franchise and eventually crossed over into Freddy's, becoming popular enough to eventually join the core 4. Also working at that pizza playground is a talented creator named Porter, someone who seems to have the ability to make wood-based animatronics come to life. In short, it's the book's stand-in for Henry. Henry may not be the most technologically advanced creator out there, but whatever he creates contains this certain X factor, a spark of life. It's how he's able to create endoskeletons out of nothing but wood. No power, no nothing, just wood and a childlike imagination. This, I think, starts to give us an important piece in the puzzle. Afton was the business guy, a tech bro who was smart and could build machines able to mimic voices and transform and launch giant claws out of their stomachs for no apparent reason. But it was Henry who had the pure love of his craft, that intangible thing that just couldn't be replicated, and it drove Afton crazy. In the Silver Eyes novel, we read a bit about Afton's old journals, that they were, quote, full of raving paranoia, passages about Henry that ranged from wild jealousy to near worship, which now gets us moving towards a motive. You see, one thing that I kept getting stuck on in the building of a timeline was the question of why. Why does Afton kill? And out of everyone, why does he kill Henry's daughter, Charlie, specifically? She is one of, if not the first victim of the entire series. So why does Afton do it? Just because he's evil? Just because he's drunk from the bar at Junior's? No. I think Afton both loved and hated his business partner. He admired him and his magic, but also despised him for his success. This contradiction starts to point us to Afton's motive for murder. It also finally helps give us a framework for the early parts of their story. Loyal theorists, let me now point us to the most obvious place that we should have been looking for lore this entire time, the history of the Chuck E. Cheese franchise. Because
Chuck E. Cheese. The thing that helped the lore is Chuck E. Cheese. Yeah, sure. Why not? Let's go that way. Let's go. Sure. Why not?
a game all about animatronic pizza restaurants, why would we not look to see what creative inspiration Scott might have gotten from the real-life franchise that started it all? I am so dumb. It took me researching an episode over on food theory to finally realize that I should have at least considered this at some point during the last 7 years of solving FNAF. Major head test moment. Anyway, I did exactly that, and what I learned was enlightening, to say the least. You see, what we now know of as Chuck E. Cheese actually started as the product of a feud between two rival animatronic pizza restaurants, Pizza Time Theater and Showbiz Pizza Place. Pizza Time was founded by a smart businessman who wanted to recreate
Pizza Time Theater and Showbiz Pizza Place?
Disneyland's
What?
Bear Jamboree. In the end, their onstage show wound up soulless and had no solid theme. Showbiz Pizza, meanwhile, had a creator who built better robotic attractions that were full of life. They also had a solid theme where everyone had southern accents and a lot of charm. I mean, just watch the clips and the difference is immediately clear.
Like, happy birthday to you, happy birthday to you, you get it?
See, we're all up here on the stage, and we can all turn, go around a big circle, together. See, like this, our feet aren't screwed to the floor or bolted down. We can move. We got more moves than a can of worm. And then that old one-tooth Billy Bob can come up there and stick his old ugly mug in your face.
To me, the battle between these two real-life pizza places, these two
Yeah, the difference is there.
men, sounds a lot like the battle between William and Henry, a smart businessman who wanted to riff off Disney's Bear Show versus a talented artist that was building animatronics with actual life and good southern accents.
I was just waiting for you to drop your guard.
Even small details of the real-life story map nicely onto the games, like the fact that these pizza places had small cabaret stages off to the side for extra acts to get added later, just like how Foxy stands alone in Pirate Cove, a separate act that we see was the last one added to the core group of 4. In real life, Pizza Time Theater, the one I most associate with William Afton, went heavily into debt and was forced to merge with Showbiz Pizza. That meant that, at least for a while, all the animatronics existed under one roof, but because the characters from Pizza Time were stronger for branding, specifically Chuck E. Cheese, that's the ones that they ultimately moved forward with. I suspect that something similar happened in the games. William's bear-themed restaurant went heavily in debt. He gets saved by his rival Henry, and the two merge their restaurants together to create Fazbear Entertainment. Chica, a mediocre melody, officially joins Fredbear's cast of friends, and the rest are slowly phased out to obscurity. And William, angry and bitter, never truly lives down the humiliation of his failure, prompting him to lash out in a drunken rage against Charlie one night behind the pizzeria. This feels right to me, to set up William as more than a purple guy. This flow of events actually gives him a reason to want to kill, a motive. It also aligns with a lot of the interviews that Steel Wool Studios has been doing recently. J-Top, creative director at Steel Wool, recently acknowledged how important it is for your horror villain to be an actual, fully fleshed out, tragic character.
Try not to set out to make a cool looking villain, you know? Go make a monster that have a reason for it. Look at like anthology horror. Here's
That's an interesting one. I wonder if there was something else that could happen. Maybe. I don't know.
Here's somebody doing something really, really bad. Like they murdered someone. Something happens, often ironically, that then comes back to bite them. A creature is created, a situation is created, and then they're judged and they get their just desserts. Every big, horror icon essentially fits that structure in a way. Why is Freddy Krueger popular? Well, it's a revenge story, isn't it? Miss Voorhees, it's a revenge story. These aren't just like these supernatural forces that came out of nowhere to just hurt people and punish people. There were results of.
Sadly, if you see my Gacha channel, technically not wrong. Jeez. To think that my mentality was actually the mentality that I had was actually the right answer. Holy cow.
Of other wrongdoing.
William Afton, if I'm right, follows this exact pattern. His jealousy over Henry's skill causes him to lash out, which in turn dominoes to him building the very robots that'll eventually take Elizabeth and his crying child son away from him. The other thing that this mediocre melody timing issue may help explain is Cassidy's death. In the Fazbear Frights books, there's Andrew, who's basically the book stand-in for Cassidy. I know we're always supposed to take things in the books with a grain of salt, but Andrew here is an angry spirit that keeps William's soul tethered to a hellish purgatory so it can be punished again and again and again. He's also known to have had his body stuffed inside of Golden Freddy, so really the connections between the two aren't subtle. But Andrew has two unusual details. First, he wears an alligator mask. Second, and even more strangely, it's repeatedly made clear that his soul is attached not to an animatronic or an endoskeleton or anything like that, but to a battery pack, of all things. Now,
what
is unusual. He's stuffed into Golden Freddy, but his soul is in a battery pack. Where in this franchise do we see animatronics using battery packs, let alone off-branded animals using battery packs? Oh wait, it's the mediocre melodies. Could they possibly have been around during the missing children's incident? Yes, given what we already talked about with the Generation 1...
Considering what's being said about the whole mediocre being around the time of the Wither animatronics, which were actually real animatronics at the time being decommissioned for the toy animatronics and then remodeled and
Freddy,
all that.
Bonnie, and Chica matching the designs of the mediocre melodies, it's certainly possible. We also see that the Golden Freddy suit has the same Henry style of design. In both the Fazbear Frights illustrations as well as FNAF 4's minigames, we see that Golden Freddy has the separated jaw controlled by 2 straight bars, just like Lefty and just like Happy Frog. And last but certainly not least, we come all the way back around to the point that I started this whole episode with. Cassidy speaks through them, of all characters. Not through Golden Freddy, not through Fredbear, through the mediocre melodies. The animatronics with a battery pack. Just thought it was an interesting series of connections. So anyway, those were some stray observations that I've been kicking around about the mediocres. What do you think? Do they have greater lore importance to the story than we initially thought, or are they just meant to be a joke? Am I just falling victim to everything that Mr. Hippo warned me against? Let me know down in the comments below now, because this is your last chance for them to affect the final FNAF timeline for 2022. Our interpretation of all the events in the series up to now. That episode will be coming in the next week or two. I swear, I am not putting it off anymore. We are gonna plow through this thing to the very end. We have gotta finish it. Gotta finish it, Matt. We've gotta finish it. You're so close. Just do it. So make sure you subscribe to know when that one is uploaded. And in the meantime, remember, stay hydrated. I appreciate that today's theory might be a lot to swallow. Fortunately, you can wash it down with help from today's sponsor, Air Up. In the FNAF world, smell is usually the thing that you can get fired for. But Air Up is using smell for good.
Not gonna take credit for that. Yeah, that was something to actually really consider. The mediocre melodies, do they play a bigger part? Yeah. I mean, now that we're discussing their design and everything, I mean, it makes sense. But nah, it just makes sense. Because that battery pack thing just really, really changes things. Because every other animatronic doesn't have a battery pack. I mean, look at the rock stars. They don't have that. They have a charging station, but they don't have a battery pack. The circus baby animatronics, they don't have battery packs. They have something else. Just like all the others. But this is, well, interesting. Because this has so much stuff to it that just makes too much sense. And I'm glad to see that, like, right here, this part, I'm kind of on the right track on mentality. Because that really helps with all that, and it helps with making the story clear. Though I am curious more on everything involving that kind of subject, like reasons and all that. It just something to really consider, really. Now I'm not gonna go ahead and do my rant at the beginning. I'm not gonna do that. It's just this thing just leaves too many things to consider. Because this also means that if we count all this together, William made Circus Baby Emporium around the same time, but then that leads to more stuff. I really, the opening and closing of all these restaurants is very, very confusing, and it leads so many things that you gotta piece together. Because Circus Baby Emporium looks very advanced, so. And it still leads to the question, did the Afton children die first, or did they die after? Certain characters. Because that could also be a reason. It's just, when these characters die is just very hard to figure out. And it's very hard to come up with a conclusive thing, in my opinion. But I think I said enough about theories and whatnot, but still, it's something to really consider. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button down below, hit the subscribe button to support the channel, support the content provided, and so on and so forth. Hit the notification button to be notified immediately when a new video comes out. With all this said, I hope you all enjoy. I'll see you all next time. Bye! Oh, also the link to this video will be down in the description below, so once again, be sure to give Game Theory some love and support. Now, bye! Oh, that was cringe.